Howdy, Techdrover here. For years, building software was expensive. You needed designers, developers, testers, project managers, infrastructure, and time. Lots of time. Today, AI is changing that equation. A single person can build in days what once took teams weeks or even months. Code generation, testing, debugging, and even architecture assistance are becoming part of everyday workflows. But that raises an interesting question. If building software is becoming easier, why do so many products still fail? Has AI actually solved the hard part of product development, or is it simply exposed where the real bottlenecks have always been? In this Techdrover Horizons conversation, I sit down with Ala, founder of Wisary, and a software engineering leader who has spent the last several years exploring how AI is changing the way products are built. We discuss what happens when implementation is no longer the primary constraint, why clear thinking matters more than ever, and what skills may become more valuable in an AI-driven future. Let's dive in. Thanks, Ala, for joining me today to talk about AI. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your background and what you're doing with your company.
Sure. So I started as a software engineer. I was building software products way before AI and leading engineering teams. And then when ChatGPT came out, I kind of realized that everything I learned is going to change. Yeah. And basically, what I decided to do, I decided to kind of explore that. So basically, I started to think about like how the processes of building software are changing, how the skill sets that are needed to build software are changing. And that kind of discovery actually brought me to build Wisary, kind of the product that I have built. Basically, what I realized is the most important skill when we're working with AI is the thinking part and the planning part, and make sure like we're really confident about what we want to build and we know how to communicate that really, really clearly to whoever needs to do that. So basically, that led me to building an AI coach that helps product managers define requirements better. So that was about 3 years ago when I started. Super interesting journey learning with industry about kind of AI. Initially, we thought, oh, AI can write stuff. Great. Let's have it write documents. And then we realized that, well, that it writes garbage if it doesn't have the right context. Let's give it context. Let's use RAG. And then we realized that we don't have the context. If you think about software development, technical documentation never existed. Product documentation is outdated the second it's written. And if AI doesn't have context, it just hallucinates. And then kind of I realized that, okay, so where's the context? It's like in our heads. So let's get it out of our heads. And basically, let's use AI to ask the questions. And like, let's use AI to kind of help us think more thoroughly. So I've been building the product, and that was super fun. But then at some point, about half a year ago now, a bit more, Claude Code came out. And then I realized that kind of the capabilities of AI go to like totally next level. And that if before that, I was looking at AI as like nice assistants that can maybe do some intern level job, can implement well-defined function or like review stuff, write tests. When I discovered Claude Code, I realized that it can do much, much more. So then basically I transformed kind of the process of building my own product to AI first. So now I have AI helping me define the requirements by kind of asking me the questions, helping me plan the implementation, actually going and building and like writing code. Like I don't write a single line of code anymore. Just tell AI what to write and what it did wrong and what I wanted to fix. And then it helps me review the code, helps me write the test, helps me run the test, helps me evaluate test failures and debug, and then identify where the gaps are. Is it the requirements? Is it in test? Is it in implementation? Literally today, I kind of integrated logs from my servers with the regression test runner, so I can kind of analyze the logs on its own. It doesn't need me anymore. So that process kind of was super, super, super interesting. And now I realize that we can't just use AI tools to enhance our existing workflows. We actually need to figure out like how does the process change, and kind of what is the AI role in it, and what's our role in it. I think one thing is not changing. Like we still need to think. We still need to define requirements, what we want to build. And it's not, what's interesting is it used to be like a product manager job, right? Kind of
Right.
thinking about the product. Now I'm realizing that everybody is a product builder and it's everybody's job, even if they're not realizing it. So when I configure my, let's say, Claude Cowork, I'm not writing any code, I'm not building any software product, but I'm thinking about the functionality it needs to support. When somebody who is totally non-technical and just kind of vibe codes their whatever tool, again, they need to think about like what is this thing they want to build and like how do they want it to behave. So they may not even know that this is called requirements or PRD or product requirements, but in reality, kind of that's kind of where most of the work kind of is going.
Okay. Yeah, a couple of things you hit on. The context is so important. Using the ChatGPT integration with Xcode to tell it to fix a problem. It fixes it, but it doesn't do it in context of the whole app. So it gives you a solution that doesn't really work. So that's one thing I've run across. So, as AI, it makes implementations faster, sometimes cheaper, depending on the pricing model. Yeah, so what becomes the new bottleneck in product development?
Yes, I think definitely faster, definitely cheaper. I feel like if I guide AI in the right way, it can do 10x, 20x more than like an engineer could do before, especially on the coding side. So coding implementation is not a bottleneck, and I think the bottleneck is kind of switched to like before and after. Before is defining what we want to build, whether this is on the business level, like what business problem do we want to solve. Does this product need to exist? So kind of figuring out like the business questions.
Mm-hmm.
Then on the product level, like what this product should be doing and should not be doing. And then on the technical level, what technology we should be using, how we should be using it, how we should architecture kind of our implementation. So I think all this planning upstream, it still requires expertise, still requires focus and thinking and ownership. So that is kind of the bottleneck before the implementation. And then there's the validation. So, okay, so now kind of AI can write huge amounts of code really, really fast. But if we're doing 0 to 1, that's great, perfectly fine. You just see the output, you test it out, you play around with it, cool. But when you're trying to iterate an existing product and you don't want to break it, then the QA becomes the new bottleneck. It's AI can help with that. It can definitely write the tests. It can even run the tests. But when tests starting to fail, or there's some disagreements between what the requirement says, what the test says, what the implementation says, it's me who needs to review it and kind of make the decision. So I think kind of one bottleneck is defining what to build, and the other bottleneck is validating that actually build the right thing. But the implementation itself is like totally compressed.
Okay. So, if AI is making everything easier and faster, where are teams still failing? And I think you kind of touched on this, but, tell me a little bit more about that because, a lot of apps out there still have a lot of problems.
I think the main problem or most of the apps have is like the same problem that they had before, just now we have more apps, is they shouldn't exist in the first place. They're not solving the right problem, or they're not solving it the right way, or they're not solving it for the right people. I think the main challenge with all the early stage startups and apps out there is the go to market. Is are we actually building the thing that somebody wants to use?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
With
so
my
I think,
team,
mhm.
sorry, I was just going to say with my teams and my products, the main question that I always ask is why does anybody care?
And I think that's a great question to ask about anything. Like when we're building a product, when we are uh, offering a new solution, we're building a new feature. If nobody cares about it, then maybe it's just fun to do, and that's fine because, like, okay, I care to do something fun. But
Right.
I think we need to be kind of honest with ourselves about like why we're doing something.
Yes. Um, so as the world is changing, I mean, to me, AI is an inflection point, kind of like electric lights or cars or the internet. I mean, it's changes everything. I think people are still figuring that out. So, what does a healthy product development cycle look like in the AI world? From your perspective.
I think it depends a lot on the stage of the company and the composition of the company, which was
Okay.
true even before, right? When you had like a tiny, even before AI, when you had a tiny startup, it didn't operate the same way as a huge enterprise or kind of a hyper growth company. Like I think every team and every product type, um, they have different processes. But I think like some kind of concepts are the same. As I said, being very clear on why we're doing something. Does anybody care? And like making sure that we're building the right things. Because the fact that we can build fast doesn't mean that we should build. Because it may be cheap to build, but it's still very expensive to maintain. And it's very, very expensive to kill a feature or a product that you have one user out there that cares about it.
Uh-huh.
So I think more focus on the requirements, more focus on intentional technical architecture. And actually, I think the quality of the code needs to become even higher. Because like the default is just like go and let AI do the stuff. It will copy paste like a bunch of stuff and like it will work. But then like slowly you'll start to iterate on that, and like AI will kind of get lost in its own mess.
Yeah.
So what I find myself is investing in tech debt and investing in quality of the code
Mm-hmm.
even more than I used to before AI. Because I can. It's like so much easier just to go and refactor everything. And B, because if we don't do that, then we're going to get into like crazy mess that nobody will be able to understand what's going on.
Yeah. Well, that never happened without AI. Anyway. All right. Is there? Thank you for your time. Is there anything else you want to add before we sign off?
Yeah, I think what's really interesting is like what are the core skills that people need these days, kind of to be
Uh-huh.
successful. Because if I look about even like the engineering talent, like before AI, it was important to like know kind of system architecture and coding and the best practices. Uh, Today, coding languages don't matter anymore, and maybe they didn't matter as much before either. But you needed to know a few to be able to kind of learn more.
Right.
Today, actual coding doesn't matter. Uh, but product thinking does, and kind of connecting kind of what we want to build to why we're building it and what we kind of actually kind of want to achieve. I think these kind of become kind of much more important and transferable skills. That's something that AI is not going to do for us.
Yeah. That's some really good points. Yeah. One of the things I've done, I wrote a iOS app, and then I fed it into AI and said, "Give me an Android app." And other than the fact that it tried to make it to Android-like, and had to pull it back to no, I want it to look the way I want it to look. It did it.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, and you don't need to know the syntax. You don't. You need to
no.
know like basic kind of concepts of good software engineering to kind
Hmm.
of steer it in the right direction sometimes. But other than that,
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for your time, and I appreciate you spending some time to talk with me about AI today. One of the biggest ideas I took away from this conversation is that AI isn't eliminating the need for expertise. It's changing where it matters most. For decades, software development was constrained by implementation. Writing code was expensive, building products was expensive, making changes was expensive. Today, much of that cost is being compressed by AI. But as Ala pointed out, the work doesn't disappear. Instead, the bottleneck moves. The challenge becomes defining the right problem, understanding why users care, making intentional architectural decisions, and validating what was built actually solves the problem it was intended to solve. In other words, AI may be reducing the cost of implementation while increasing the value of clear thinking. And that might be the most important shift happening right now. The tools are going to continue to evolve, the models will improve, the capabilities will expand, but understanding what to build, why it matters, and how to judge whether it's working remains a fundamentally human responsibility. I'm Techdrover. Thanks for watching.